Now, it's a big election day here in the United States with some significant races making the headlines in New York City, New Jersey and Virginia, plus a redistricting vote in California. But it is the mayoral race right here in the Big Apple that is taking centre stage, with investors and Wall Street watching closely. It's a blockbuster race with Republican Curtis Sliwa, Independent Andrew Cuomo and Democrat Zohran Mamdani on the ballot, whom President Trump has labelled a communist. Trump now backs Cuomo and warns he'll cut federal funding if Mamdani wins. Here is President Trump speaking to our partners at CBS.
It's going to be hard for me as the president to give a lot of money to New York, because if you have a communist running New York, all you're doing is wasting the money you're sending there. So I don't know that he's won, and I'm not a fan of Cuomo one way or the other, but if it's going to be between a bad Democrat and a communist, I'm going to pick the bad Democrat all the time, to be honest with you.
Well, let's bring in Henrietta Treyes, co-founder and director of economic policy at Vader Partners in Washington, D.C. You advise investors on political events. So I'm very curious to get your take on this. We've got Donald Trump there making those comments, but in some ways, Mamdani's playbook isn't that dissimilar. Populist message, disruptive, appealing to pocketbook issues. So is sort of Mamdani in some ways a kind of complete foil to what we've seen with Trump on the right?
Yes, I would definitely say that's an appropriate way to categorize all of this. For American voters, the number 1 through 3 issues are the U.S. economy, inflation, and prices. And they do not like the president's tariffs. They see grocery prices continuing to rise, electricity prices continuing to rise. And they're saying, look, we voted for Donald Trump to bring prices down, and that's not happening. So maybe we need to take an alternate route. And it's specifically salient with the under 45 and the 45-year-old and under demographic. They are very much migrating in the Mamdani direction, at least in New York City. And that is all to do with his affordability message and many of the same things that President Trump ran on. So to have Trump endorsing Cuomo, who is not as focused on those issues, presents a very stark contrast between the candidate that President Trump was on the campaign trail versus what he's delivered, and then what Mamdani is trying to sell voters on right now as well in New York.
I mean, how do you think, for people watching this show from an international perspective, to what extent should global businesses, investors care about the outcome of the New York City mayoral race, but also those other races we mentioned in Virginia and in New Jersey?
Yeah, I would say that the biggest thing to look at is just directionally what this means. In the last 90 years, if Democrats have swept New York, New Jersey, and the New York mayoral race and Virginia, they go on to win the House of Representatives in the following midterm election cycle, which is next November. So as we look ahead to the president's tariffs, his authority to impose those tariffs, oversight, deregulatory efforts, things along those lines, you want to be looking at what is going to be the levers of power in Washington in the back half of Trump's second term. So what this suggests in the elections and the polling data that we see right now is that Democrats lead in all 3 of those states between 6 and 16 points. So you could take the other side and sort of cross your fingers and expect for some other candidate to win. But the polling has been pretty consistent all year. The Democratic candidates are in the lead by some various margin, again, 6 to 16 points. So that suggests that we're headed into a blue wave in the 2026 midterms, which is normal. When one party has control of Washington, voters tend to migrate back in the other direction. We vote for change, but we don't really like it when we get it. So they turn back in the other way. And that's what they're going to do this time around if the elections turn out the way polling suggests right now.
And we'll have to see. Obviously, New York produced Donald Trump. We'll see whether or not Mamdani will be another sort of shock in the political circles. Henrietta Treyes, co-founder and director of economic policy at Vader Partners. Always good to see you.